The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of Windsor Castle as Catherine walked through the corridors that had become so familiar to her over the years. Her footsteps echoed softly on the polished marble floors, a sound that had once intimidated her but now brought comfort. Today felt different, though, charged with an energy she couldn't quite place. Catherine had always understood that her role within the royal family would evolve over time. What she hadn't expected was how quickly that change would come, or how dramatically it would reshape not just her duties, but her entire identity within the monarchy. The conversation that would change everything began in the Queen's private study, a room filled with centuries of history and the weight of countless important decisions. Catherine found herself seated across from senior palace officials, their faces serious but not unkind. The discussion that followed would mark a turning point, not just for her, but for the entire institution of the monarchy. "Your Royal Highness," began the private secretary, his voice carrying the gravity of the moment. "We've been conducting a comprehensive review of royal duties and titles. The modern monarchy requires adaptation, and your role has proven to be more significant than initially anticipated." Catherine listened carefully, her hands folded in her lap. She had learned early in her royal journey that patience and attentiveness were among the most valuable qualities she could possess. The officials explained that public polling and engagement metrics had revealed something remarkable about her impact on the royal family's standing with the British people. The numbers told a compelling story. Catherine's public appearances consistently drew larger crowds than expected. Her charitable work had generated millions in donations and volunteer hours. Social media engagement with royal content increased dramatically whenever she was featured. Most importantly, younger demographics who had previously shown little interest in the monarchy were now actively following royal activities. The Queen Consort role, as traditionally defined, doesn't fully capture the scope of what you've accomplished or what the institution needs moving forward, explained another official. This wasn't criticism of previous holders of the title, but recognition that times had changed, and so too must the monarchy's structure. Catherine had always approached her royal duties with genuine enthusiasm. From her first official engagement, she had thrown herself wholeheartedly into learning about the causes and organizations she would support. Her background had given her a unique perspective on connecting with people from all walks of life, something that hadn't gone unnoticed by palace observers. Her work with early childhood development had become particularly impactful. What had started as one area of focus had grown into a comprehensive program that was influencing government policy and changing how society viewed child development. Catherine had spent countless hours meeting with experts, visiting facilities, and learning about the latest research. Her dedication wasn't just ceremonial, she had become genuinely knowledgeable and passionate about the subject. The officials outlined how her approach to royal duties had set a new standard. She didn't simply attend events and shake hands. She asked thoughtful questions, remembered details from previous visits, and followed up on commitments. Organizations reported that her involvement led to increased visibility, funding, and volunteer support that lasted long after her visits ended. "There's also the matter of international relations," one official noted. Catherine's overseas tours had proven remarkably successful. Foreign dignitaries spoke highly of their interactions with her, noting her genuine interest in their cultures and issues. Trade delegations reported that her presence at events led to more productive negotiations and stronger bilateral relationships. The conversation then turned to the practicalities of royal hierarchy and how titles reflected both tradition and current reality. The existing structure had served well for generations, but it hadn't anticipated someone who would so effectively modernize royal engagement while maintaining respect for tradition. Catherine's relationship with the media had also proven to be a significant asset. She had managed to maintain privacy for her family while still providing the public access that modern royalty required. Her approach to photography and public appearances struck a balance that pleased both traditional royal watchers and younger audiences seeking more relatable public figures. The officials explained that focus groups and polling had revealed something unprecedented. People didn't just respect Catherine, they genuinely liked her. More importantly, they trusted her. In an era when public trust in institutions was declining, she had somehow managed to increase confidence in the monarchy among previously skeptical demographics. Her influence on fashion and culture had also become a significant soft power asset for Britain. The Catherine effect on British designers and businesses had generated millions in economic impact. When she wore something from a British designer or visited a British business, the results were immediate and measurable. But perhaps most significantly, she had managed to make the monarchy feel more accessible without diminishing its dignity. Young mothers saw themselves in her struggles to balance public duties with raising children. Working women appreciated her professional approach to her role. Even those who didn't consider themselves monarchists found themselves respecting her work ethic and genuine commitment to her causes. The meeting continued as officials outlined specific examples of her impact: hospital visits that led to policy changes, school programs that were expanded nationwide because of her advocacy, international partnerships that strengthened because of relationships she had built, environmental initiatives that gained traction because of her support. Catherine realized that what they were describing wasn't just recognition of past achievements, but preparation for an expanded future role. The monarchy was acknowledging that she had grown beyond the traditional expectations of her position and was ready to take on responsibilities that matched her demonstrated capabilities and public standing. As the morning meeting progressed, she began to understand that this wasn't simply about changing a title. It was about officially recognizing a transformation that had already taken place in everything but name. The institution was catching up to a reality that the public had already accepted. The weight of this realization settled on her shoulders, but it wasn't the crushing burden she might have expected years earlier. Instead, it felt like validation of the path she had chosen and confirmation that her instincts about how to serve had been correct. She had trusted her authentic self rather than trying to fit into a predetermined mold, and it had worked. The discussion would continue, but already Catherine could sense that her life was about to change in ways she was only beginning to comprehend. The weeks following that pivotal meeting brought a whirlwind of activity that Catherine hadn't fully anticipated. Palace staff worked discreetly but intensively to prepare for what would become one of the most significant changes in royal protocol in recent memory. The transformation wouldn't happen overnight, but the machinery of change had been set in motion. Catherine found herself in numerous private consultations with constitutional experts, historians, and senior royal household members. Each meeting revealed another layer of complexity in what had initially seemed like a straightforward title adjustment. The monarchy operated within centuries of precedent, and any change required careful consideration of tradition, law, and public perception. "The historical precedents are fascinating but limited," explained Dr. Margaret Thornton, a constitutional historian who had been brought in to advise on the process. "What we're proposing has elements of innovation that reflect the modern reality of royal duties and public expectations." These sessions took place in various locations throughout the royal properties, each setting reinforcing the weight of history and tradition that surrounded any decision. Catherine often found herself in rooms where previous generations of royals had made decisions that shaped the nation. The responsibility was both inspiring and humbling. The legal implications proved more complex than anyone had initially realized. Parliamentary approval wasn't required, but coordination with various government departments was necessary. The change would affect official protocols, diplomatic precedents, and even seemingly minor details like seating arrangements at state functions. Catherine's team began receiving briefings on the expanded responsibilities that would come with her elevated status. The scope was remarkable. She would have greater input into the royal family's charitable strategy. Her international role would expand significantly, with solo overseas visits becoming more common. She would also gain more influence over the causes and organizations that received royal patronage. The public relations strategy required delicate handling. The palace communications team worked to frame the change as a natural evolution rather than a dramatic break from tradition. They emphasized continuity while acknowledging innovation, a balance that required considerable skill to achieve effectively. Catherine's existing engagements continued throughout this period, but she found herself viewing them through a different lens. Each event now felt like preparation for her expanded role. She paid closer attention to protocol details she had previously left to her staff. She asked more questions about the strategic implications of her appearances and choices. Her relationship with other working royals also began to shift subtly. Conversations that had once been informal updates now carried greater weight. Her opinions on family matters and royal strategy were sought more frequently. She found herself being consulted on decisions that had previously been made without her input. The international dimension of her changing role became apparent during a meeting with Foreign Office officials. They outlined how her elevated status would affect diplomatic relations and explained the protocols she would need to observe when representing Britain abroad in her new capacity. "Your influence on international relations has already exceeded traditional expectations," noted one diplomatic advisor. "This change will formalize what has already been happening in practice and give you greater scope to build on those relationships." The conversation touched on specific countries and relationships where Catherine's personal rapport with foreign dignitaries had proven particularly valuable. There were instances where her informal conversations had opened doors that more formal diplomatic channels had struggled to access. Catherine's schedule began to reflect her changing status even before the official announcement. She found herself attending briefings that had previously been reserved for senior royals. Her input was sought on matters ranging from the family's charitable strategy to the planning of major ceremonial events. The transformation wasn't without its challenges. Some traditionalists within the royal household expressed concerns about moving too quickly or departing too significantly from established precedent. These conversations required careful navigation, balancing respect for tradition with recognition of changing times and public expectations. Catherine's approach to these discussions reflected the diplomatic skills she had developed over years of royal duty. She listened carefully to concerns, acknowledged the value of tradition, and gently made the case for evolution. Her ability to build consensus rather than create division proved crucial during this transitional period. The media began to pick up on subtle changes in how Catherine was being positioned at public events. Royal watchers noted shifts in protocol and speculated about their significance. The palace neither confirmed nor denied these observations, maintaining the discretion necessary while preparations continued. Her children's schedules also required adjustment as palace staff anticipated the increased demands on Catherine's time. More robust support systems were put in place to ensure that her expanded duties wouldn't compromise her role as a mother, something she had made clear was non-negotiable. The staff members who worked most closely with Catherine found themselves needing additional training and support to handle the increased complexity of her role. Her private secretary's office expanded, and new specialists were brought in to handle specific aspects of her growing responsibilities. Catherine herself undertook intensive briefings on subjects that would become more central to her expanded role. Constitutional law, international relations, economic policy, and social issues all required deeper understanding than her previous position had demanded. She approached this learning with the same thoroughness that had characterized her approach to royal duties from the beginning. The security implications of her elevated status also required attention. Her protection detail was enhanced, and new protocols were established for her increased travel and public appearances. These changes, while necessary, served as constant reminders of the significance of the transformation taking place. As the weeks progressed, Catherine found herself feeling increasingly comfortable with the prospect of her expanded role. The initial uncertainty had given way to confidence as she better understood what would be expected of her and felt assured that she could meet those expectations effectively. The support from her family proved crucial during this period. Their encouragement and practical assistance with the transition helped her manage both the excitement and the pressure that came with such a significant change in status and responsibility. Private polling commissioned by the palace showed overwhelmingly positive public reaction to the prospect of Catherine's elevation. The numbers reinforced what palace officials had observed about her popularity and effectiveness, providing additional confidence that the change would be well received when officially announced. The final preparations intensified as the announcement date approached, with every detail carefully planned to ensure the change was presented in the most favorable light possible while maintaining the dignity and tradition that the public expected from such royal communications. The morning of the announcement dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming through the windows of Buckingham Palace. Catherine stood before her mirror, adjusting the elegant navy blue dress that had been specially chosen for this historic day. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on her as she prepared to step into a role that had been redefined specifically to acknowledge her unique contributions and capabilities. The announcement itself was crafted with the careful precision that marked all significant royal communications. Rather than a dramatic press conference, the news was released through traditional channels, with a formal statement from the palace that emphasized both continuity and positive change. The language was measured but warm, acknowledging Catherine's achievements while respecting the institution's traditions. Her Majesty has been pleased to grant additional recognition to Her Royal Highness in acknowledgement of her exceptional service to the Crown and the people of the United Kingdom and the Commonwealth, the statement read. The new title reflected both her elevated status and the expanded scope of her responsibilities. The public reaction exceeded even the most optimistic palace projections. Social media erupted with congratulatory messages from around the world. News outlets covered the story extensively, with royal commentators praising both Catherine's achievements and the monarchy's ability to adapt to changing times. The coverage was overwhelmingly positive, validating the careful approach that had been taken to the change. Catherine's first public appearance in her new role took place just days after the announcement. The venue was a children's hospital where she had been a patron for several years, a choice that emphasized the continuity in her charitable work while acknowledging her new status. The reception from staff, patients, and families was enthusiastic and genuine. During the visit, Catherine unveiled a new initiative that demonstrated the increased scope of her role. The program would coordinate early childhood development resources across multiple organizations, something that had only been possible because of her elevated status and the influence it carried. The announcement showed how her new position would translate into tangible benefits for the causes she championed. The international response proved equally positive. Messages of congratulation arrived from royal families, heads of state, and diplomatic missions around the world. The change was seen as a sign of the British monarchy's vitality and adaptability, enhancing rather than diminishing its international standing. Catherine's schedule in the weeks following the announcement reflected her expanded role. She found herself taking on engagements that would previously have been handled by other senior royals. Her diary filled with solo overseas visits, high-level diplomatic receptions, and strategic meetings with government officials and international leaders. Her first major solo international engagement in her new capacity took her to Canada, where she represented the Crown at a series of events celebrating the Commonwealth relationship. The visit was a resounding success, with Canadian officials expressing appreciation for her knowledge, warmth, and professionalism. The trip demonstrated how her elevated status enhanced rather than complicated Britain's international relationships. The domestic impact of the change became apparent through measurable outcomes. Organizations associated with Catherine reported increased donations, volunteer applications, and public engagement. Her enhanced profile translated directly into greater support for the causes she championed, justifying the decision to elevate her status. Catherine's approach to her expanded responsibilities remained consistent with the qualities that had earned her the elevation in the first place. She continued to prepare thoroughly for every engagement, ask thoughtful questions, and follow up on commitments. The difference was that her involvement now carried greater weight and could achieve more significant results. Her relationship with the media evolved as well. While maintaining appropriate boundaries, she became more accessible for interviews and features that helped explain her work and its impact. These communications were carefully managed but genuine, allowing the public to better understand both her personality and her commitment to her role. The constitutional experts who had advised on the change expressed satisfaction with how smoothly the transition had proceeded. The careful preparation and gradual implementation had avoided any of the complications that might have arisen from a more sudden or dramatic change. The monarchy had successfully evolved while maintaining its essential character and public support. Catherine's family life adapted remarkably well to her increased profile and responsibilities. The additional support systems that had been put in place proved effective, and her children seemed to take pride in their mother's achievements and recognition. The balance between public duty and private life that she had worked so hard to maintain remained intact. The long-term implications of the change began to emerge as Catherine settled into her new role. Her influence on the royal family's strategic direction increased significantly. Her input shaped decisions about which causes to support, how to engage with different communities, and how to present the monarchy to both domestic and international audiences. Polling conducted months after the announcement showed that public support for the monarchy had actually increased following Catherine's elevation. The change was seen as evidence that the institution could recognize merit and adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining its traditions and dignity. The monarchy appeared more relevant and responsive as a result. Catherine's impact on the next generation became increasingly apparent as well. Young women, in particular, saw in her story a model of how to build influence and affect change while respecting established institutions. Her journey from commoner to elevated royal status resonated with those who valued both ambition and service. The charitable sector reported significant benefits from Catherine's enhanced status. Her ability to convene meetings between organizations, government officials, and private sector leaders led to new partnerships and initiatives that might not have been possible without her elevated position. Her influence was being leveraged for demonstrable good. International observers noted how Catherine's elevation had enhanced Britain's soft power. Her combination of accessibility and dignity, modern approach and respect for tradition, made her an effective ambassador for British values and interests. Diplomatic relationships benefited from her enhanced status and the respect it commanded globally. As the first year in her new role progressed, Catherine reflected on how much had changed since that morning meeting in Windsor Castle. The uncertainty had given way to confidence, the potential had become reality, and the institution she served had been strengthened rather than disrupted by the changes she represented. The transformation was complete, but Catherine understood that it was also just the beginning. Her elevated status provided new opportunities to serve, new platforms from which to effect change, and new responsibilities that would continue to evolve as she grew into her expanded role. The future held unlimited potential for positive impact, built on the solid foundation of trust, competence, and genuine commitment that had earned her this recognition. The story of Catherine's elevation became more than just a personal success. It represented the monarchy's ability to honor tradition while embracing positive change. ensuring its continued relevance and effectiveness for future generations.